Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon, where I take a look at every Doctor Who story plus a bunch of Big Finish audio dramas, one episode at a time per day. And today, on the 8th of December 2017, we start the next Patrick Troughton story, The Enemy of the World, with episode 1. This, of course, was I first saw the story originally in 2013 when it was discovered, but I had also listened to the CD version released with, I believe it was Fraser Hines was on narration for that CD. And it's always been a story that's special place in my heart, and mainly because I've been one of the people who advocates that episode 1 is one of the great ways to start a story. This is breaking up a lot. This is about the middle of season 5 right now, so. And season 5 has had 3 very monster-heavy stories, whereas episode 1 of this one opens up and makes it almost action-heavy. It's written by David Whittaker, and David Whittaker does a great job in this episode. He writes a script which has a bunch of indirect characterization, and the actors portraying the characters, of course, characterize their characters by using their presence. This is especially apparent with Bruce, who comes in as like. Who just with the tone of voice of him, we already know he's a security chief, but he obviously has disdain for Giles Kent, and he's only in one scene, but we already have a good feel on who this guy is, and that's really setting up everything. The story opens directly with essentially, it opens with an end of episode 1, where, we'd have an episode 1 cliffhanger where the Doctor and company be getting into danger. Now, this one, they're getting into danger as soon as they land. They are being literally shot at by people because the Doctor happens to look like this world figure named Salamader. And Salamader is this guy who's very, very, he's charismatic. He's supposed to be Mexican, I guess, which is kind of funny, and he's played by Patrick Troughton, because the whole point is that he looks like the Doctor. Spoilers, but that's sort of what this story is very famous for, and I'm very, very glad that I actually found, because this is already miles ahead of the Massacre of St. Bartholomew's Eve, the last story to feature a doppelganger of a character, mainly because it's a story that you have the Doctor here, and they get shot at, they get rescued in a helicopter, and the direction is just amazing. It's directed like a Bond movie. Barry Letts was the director. This is his first work on Doctor Who. He'll eventually become producer, and this is actually the last time Ennis Lloyd produces. This is the last time Peter Bryant is script editor, because Peter Bryant then becomes the producer after this story. When we get to the next story, and this one, the show's already, the film, where they're using a different type of film starting with this story, and you can already see, like, the quality of the black and white film increase from the last one. It's a very, very good, it's almost like this episode just works as a breath of fresh air. Then you have Patrick Troughton playing Salamander, right now in this episode as evil, as that's sort of what's required, well, as like this charismatic politician that we think is evil, and you have playing as the Doctor with this great mortal element. He gets some great one-liners here with, like, Victoria asks, "Have we landed in a world of madmen?" And the Doctor replies, "Oh, they're human beings, if that's what you mean." Like, it's just some great little comments here and there that really give the character a lot of, just sort of. This gives the episode just this oomph of this is where we're going. This is how the episode is going to start, and this is where we're going to be going from here. And I enjoy the episode. The episode is perfect. Like, the action is great, the plot is great. We have our plot that the Doctor's got to impersonate Salamander. The cliffhanger is him impersonating Salamander, and it's a pretty good. Of course it's a pretty good impersonation, but what's interesting is that you have Patrick Troughton almost slipping a little on the accent in the cliffhanger. Like, it's not quite as much as what he does for Salamander, which is actually, it's a nice little acting touch. This would be a fun episode to watch, so I give it a 10 out of 10. Alright, it is the 9th of December 2017, and I just finished watching The Enemy of the World, episode 2, the second episode of the story, and just like the first one, it is a perfect masterpiece. It just knows just how to shake up the story enough to give us a satisfying tale with the Doctor and friends. Mainly this episode deals with the Doctor Jamie and Victoria infiltrating Salamander's operation, while the Doctor and Giles Kent, who was introduced in the last episode, are looking at a research station. Picking up right, the cliffhanger resolution is that the Doctor really can impersonate Salamander, and Bruce, the security guy, buys it. Basically forcing the Doctor into helping, and it is a great moral dilemma that the Doctor has. And he does not want to help these people, because I think part of it's because he's scared, but another big part of it is that he just doesn't know what side is good. He's only had really Giles' word for it, and on the surface, Salamander seems good, and Victoria agrees with him on this, but Jamie notices that people did try to shoot at them, and he doesn't necessarily trust Salamander, so the Doctor's at least gonna impersonate Salamander enough just to see, is there any way I can really help these people out at all? Like, are they just trying to use me for their own ends? Like, and it's a very complex moral dilemma that the Doctor has to face, and that is really at the heart of this script. David Whittaker writes the script, and he is excellent at just writing these characters. The direction is also great, continues to be great. This one doesn't have as much location filming, and Barry Letts will become famous for using green screen, but a lot of the backdrops are pretty convincing. Like there's a park bench that's done with, it's all a set, but it's a really good set. That's so much so that if it weren't for the fact that I know you can really tell this was made in the 60s, if this was made today with the budget, it would be a very convincing set. This one, you have this point where the Doctor's like, he's told he's going to meet at a disused jetty. He thinks he says Yeti, because, we are 2 episodes in, and there's no monster. This is one of those stories where there isn't going to be an alien threat. It's just humans being humans. Using the sci-fi concept of someone wanting to take over the world. It's very much a James Bond. This is very much Doctor Who does James Bond before the Pertwee era, when, of course, they took specific cues from James Bond to make a story with John Pertwee's run as the Doctor. We actually get to see Salamander, and he is crafty. Patrick Troughton plays him. He's playing him as a very sinister force. I think the only reason that you get the idea that he might not be is that he could just be under a lot of stress, is also because Giles Kent is played just as craftily. Like, Kent is just as creepy and just as not as like you don't trust him. You can't really, you don't know who you can trust. You have Fraser Hines as Jamie in an excellent role. There's a point where he busts into Salamander's thing. It takes a gun. It's like, all right, nobody move. Takes then a radio, tosses it over, and then it blows up. And he gets to play the action hero, and it is hilarious because he's got this smug look of. Fraser Hines just plays it with the smug look of satisfaction, like, yes, I'm a genius. Nobody's gonna guess that I'm actually working against you, Salamander. And then you have other politicians. This Bennick, who is this slimy greaseball of a character. He's Salamander's underling, and he's just, ooh. It's one of those characters that you just get chills when he's on the screen because he's like such a slime ball. And then you have Federin, who is he's the zone owner that Salamander's blackmailing, who is just one of those, like, this meek. He is a meek bastard. Like, he just is like, I could never kill someone, proceeds to have to, but is easily blackmailed. Like, it's just, has no morals whatsoever. And then you have Dennis, which is Giles' contact with the regime, because Giles was discredited. So Dennis is like, I think Dennis is the only one here who's, like, at least presented himself as a good person. He stands up for what's right. Of course, I think he's probably going to be killed because Salamander's planning to assassinate him. And then you have one of Salamander's servants, Fariah. first time we've had a real, this is another one of those times we have a black character in Doctor Who in the 60s, and she's I don't want to say she's a femme fatale, but she kind of just plays it like a femme fatale. She's like, she's very calm, cool, and collected. She obviously hates her situation. Like, she's essentially, she is his food taster. She's like, yeah, and there's this subtle implication that I feel like Salamander might have some sort of, like, this power dynamic over her, and it's, like, just subtly done, like, she hates his guts, but you really feel for it, but she's also just a nice person. She's very nice to Victoria and Jamie, and they all get along together, and it is really, really good. The episode just flies by. 25 minutes of your time. You won't regret this episode. The Enemy of the World episode 2 gets a 10 out of 10. Because, again, great episode. These two episodes you won't really regret. Alright, so it is the 10th of December, 2017, and I just finished watching episode 3 of The Enemy of the World. And this one takes a slight dip in quality. This was, this episode is the one that existed before the story was found, and became pretty infamous for a few jokey things. It's very much a sort of a comic relief episode. We get introduced to Salamander's head chef, Griffin, who is just this cynical man, and he's great, but the big problem is that just the plot doesn't move along very much, outside of the fact that Federer tries to assassinate Dennis, can't do it, so Salamander just poisons him, and you get this really creepy line where he's like, oh, suicide, of course. Get rid of him, will you? Suicide, of course. Because which is implying that this is just a normal occurrence for these people who work for him. And you get Fariah, who, again, she is a very interesting character. She doesn't get too much to do in this one, but again, neither does Jamie and Victoria. They mainly get captured. And I think they're being, like, carted off to Australia or something. I don't know. There's, like, they're basically they don't have a part to play really in this one, in the proceedings of this one, but they are, of course, the story just sort of slows down around them as they are bringing everything together. The script is still really, really good. The Doctor is barely in it. He's mainly playing Salamander here, which is really good because that's we really get a full picture of who Salamander is. That he is power mad. We also sort of have the idea that he is somehow causing earthquakes. And the big cliffhanger, which is another slight problem with the episode, mainly that it doesn't really, it just sort of ends the episode. It doesn't really give us any cliffhanger. Very odd cliffhangers in this one. Yeah, but this episode is just sort of, it's sort of the dull, it would be described as sort of the dull middle episode in any other story, but it's still a very fun episode. Fraser Hines and Deborah Watling are great, the guy playing Griffin is great, the guy playing Dennis is great, he's they bring, they of course are still presuming his innocence, because he hasn't had a trial yet. But they're like, oh yes, we'll give him food. And it's like, they give him a steak, but they're like, oh, we can't give you a knife because you might kill somebody with, like, a steak knife. You know, we might not be able to overpower you with the might of your steak knife, which is just, it's so funny. It is some of the fun, it's really funny. It's a comedy episode, and it's a good episode. It's sort of a good little in-between episodes, but it's just sort of some weird, it's just mainly that weird jarring that causes problems. And I like this one. I like this one so much that I'm going to give The Enemy of the World episode 3 an 8 out of 10 because it's good, and we'll be back tomorrow with episode 4. Alright, it is the 11th of December 2017, and I just finished watching The Enemy of the World episode 4, which improves over the few issues I had with the last episode, but still has the awful problem of not really knowing how to make a cliffhanger work as a cliffhanger, mainly because we are dealing with characters. We are dealing with much more, something that's not very much in line with Doctor Who's previously established formula, because we are dealing with characters who have their own motivations, and their own sort of trials and tribulations to work through, as we are building as best as we can towards, of course, the big conclusion at the end of the story. That's, of course, going to be the end of the story. We have everybody sort of working towards their own ends. We have this is a story that really this episode really sort of takes the story, and I guess you could say it's a new direction. It's also a very weird direction. Jamie and Victoria are gone as they're being transported, so it's really focusing on the Doctor and Salamander as, as characters, as they are, as we get the Doctor deciding, yes, I'm gonna have to impersonate Salamander only because Fariah tells him how bad this guy is, but he still remains his staunch self that he's not gonna kill the man. It doesn't matter what happens, but that is not what he is going to do. He's not going to be talked into killing him at all, because he's not the sort of person to be a killer, and he isn't gonna. He doesn't want to hurt the guy. He'll have him arrested, sure, but he won't kill him. But of course, Fariah ends up getting. She ends up getting herself killed in this one. It's because Bennett comes and basically, Bennett comes in basically chases him out and somehow still doesn't notice that this guy looks like Salamander. That's one thing that's a little annoying, is that no one seems to notice the Doctor and Salamander look like each other. They notice Giles and Astrid. Fariah gets shot without being sort of known, that everything is all right. She gets herself shot, and we are building towards, and you have the Doctor getting made up, and the big cliffhanger of the episode is the big problem of the episode is that someone walks in on them. And that's about it. It's punctuated by scenes with Salamander as the audience gets revealed that Salamander is in fact not only just evil, but even more evil than evil, because... So, earlier on we had Salamander being able to predict a volcanic eruption. Well, this is where the story goes full James Bond on us, and reveals that Salamander has a secret lair underneath his research room, where he has people hiding out, controlling natural disasters, because he's told them that they've gone through a nuclear war with evil mutations outside, I guess. Basically, that they've got to keep you doing all these natural disasters so they can keep surviving. And he goes up every so often to try to get supplies, which is slowly killing him. He is their savior. We, of course, know that this is a lie altogether, but and sorry about that. And he, he's alive. And there are people down there living, living without any sort of idea that the world outside exists at all. It's just sort of we live here. This is how we survive. And it's creepy. And you have these two characters one of them, who's a guy, has a hot lady who's pining for him, doesn't want to go for her, of course, but he's just complaining, and it's so creepy. So much so that I will give The Enemy of the World, episode 4, a 9 out of 10, because again, that is not a very good cliffhanger. It is the 12th of December, 2017, and I just finished watching The Enemy of the World, episode 5. And this episode brings us back up to that quality that the first couple of episodes have had. mainly in the fact that we continue the story like we do. We have everything really starting to crisscross. You have the big reveal that it was Bruce, the security chief, who came into the caravan, and even though he's still on the side of Salamander, at the beginning of the episode, he's willing to at least hear the doctor out, and let them explain, and if they can show him, yes, in fact, Salamander is evil. He is essentially trying to destroy the world as it stands, and he really should not be. He should not really be trusted with the running of things. Bruce is able really to see that the doctor is mostly a good person there and the doctor does want to try and help out. He's not the bad guy here. And especially because the doctor even says he does not want to kill anybody. He's just going to try his hardest to figure out what side of the people, of everybody, is good, what side is bad, and who really to trust. Yeah, that is an excellent way of doing things. You have the real feeling that everything is sort of coming together and creating a big, solid sort of ending, that we're going to have an explanation as to what Salamander's really planning, what everything has sort of been leading up to this whole time. And you have Patrick Troughton doing great. He goes the whole 9 yards, like, right, I'm going to impersonate Salamander. Jamie, and what they're going to do, what Bruce and the doctor do, is they go and they essentially, the doctor essentially gets Jamie and Victoria to basically explain their plan for them. And so you have, but as if through interrogation, so Bruce, sort of doesn't make sense, so much so that Jamie and Victoria end up actually going, and it's hilarious. Victoria's about to slap the doctor silly, thinking it's Salamander, when it's like, oh, no, wait, no. When he literally falls out of his chair, and it's like, no, Victoria, it's me. And that's just a hilarious moment. You have Victoria ready, basically, to kill the guy. So much so that the doctor has to literally just sort of fall back, and that's just hilarious. And then you have, of course, Bruce leaving a guard on Giles and Astrid, and while Salamander, still down in his bunker, one of the people in the bunker, Swan, finds a bit of newspaper that was attached to some of the food that Salamander got them, and it reveals a holiday liner. And the big question is, well, why would a holiday liner still be here? There's supposed to be a bunch of radiation, so Salamander tells him this yarn, and basically convinces the guy, and Patrick Troughton does a great job. Salamander's played as this just manipulative bastard, and he really, he essentially goes to, he essentially is like, okay, he gets them to go along with him and be like, they're really just evil people, and, I'll show you on the surface. So he goes up to the surface with Salamander, and then gets hurt, and then Astrid and Giles escape the guard. Giles goes to the research center, Astrid just still running away from the guard, and finds Swan, and it's amazing. Everything is just building up to a conclusion, so that'll give The Enemy of the World Episode 5 another 10 out of 10. Alright, it is the 13th of December 2017, and I just finished watching the final episode of The Enemy of the World Episode 6, and we continue off with the perfect streak of episodes. Mainly, for this one, we resolve all of our plot lines on a nice little bow, and we get something that the story has been teasing us for a while, where the Doctor and Salamander actually meet. Apparently, the production story goes that Barry Letts wanted to have a much longer sequence, but had to shorten it a little bit for length because of just because some of the props and some of the techniques used to film Patrick Troughton in two places at the same time sort of failed. But even still, I'm glad that we actually have this episode existing because we can actually see what it looks like. And that big fight is the highlight of the episode. It's the climax, and it's the resolution. You have it looks really, really good. It's one of those things that has to be seen. It has to be seen to be believed. You really can't just be told about it that, oh yes, the Doctor and Salamander fight, and then that's the thing that happens. No, you have to look at this and see just how great everything looked. Barry Letts does an excellent job directing. We also then move on. Other than that, we have mainly the wrapping up between Astrid and Giles Kent. Giles Kent gets killed by Salamander after it's been revealed that he was working with Salamander almost the whole time. He was the one who brought the people down into the shelter. He's the one who convinced them that everything happened, and then they were just told he died. That's really all they were told. And then you have Astrid actually meeting Colin and Mary, and promising to get everybody out of there, really showing that she is really the only one. She's like Bruce, is one of the people who's actually a good person at heart, and really is trying to save the world. She's trying to be a good person and trying to sort of do what she can, just like Bruce. Bruce is still a good person. We also have the downfall of Bennick, who is just still slimy. Like Bruce and the Doctor have him arrested. The Doctor, of course, still acting like Salamander. And the guy just responds with, he literally becomes a whimpering idiot. He's pretty much just your stereotypical jackbooted thug who, once he loses power, just becomes a whiny little, excuse my language, he's a whiny little bitch by the end. Is great. He's, for such a seedy character, that's just this great downfall. And to see him get his comeuppance is, one of those excellent things. The writing in this is top notch. Like both the Doctor and Salamander have some great one-liners. The Doctor, when he's like, Jamie and Victoria don't really realize that it's Salamander initially, mainly because we do the big reveal. And what's nice is that Barry Letts doesn't really show us that the Doctor has changed clothes until we see him and Salamander coming face to face. Because that is something that really really adds to the illusion that, is this the Doctor? Has he just been injured really badly? And you have Patrick Troughton having to play Salamander, imitating the Doctor, but Salamander hasn't heard what the Doctor sounds like. And I'm not quite sure what his plan was. I think it might just be keep Jamie and Victoria hostage and strand the Doctor on Earth. Though I highly doubt the TARDIS would let them take off. Just because of her isomorphic controls and she knows who the Doctor is. She wouldn't be fooled by Salamander as a faker when compared to the Doctor. And then we end on a cliffhanger, which is it's interesting. This is the first time we've ended on a cliffhanger since the Faceless ones. You have Salamander flown into space because he messed with the controls, so the TARDIS has taken off, but the doors are still open. So the Doctor and Victoria grab on to a pole. Jamie Colt is holding onto the console for dear life, and just about, I think, and we're flying off into space. That's how the episode ends. So we're just going to pick up in the next story right from here, which is going to be great to watch. That'll be very, very interesting just to see what it goes. So and because of all this and just how great the Enemy of the World has been, I'm going to give episode 6 another 10 out of 10. And then, of course, we add up all the scores for each of the 6 episodes, and then average them out to make the Enemy of the World get a 9.5 out of 10. Thank you everybody for watching this installment of the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, when we will be watching The Web of Fear.